something that we set up to do with Fortum, and this is something that we are going to just tell you about. So, avoiding pitfalls and defining the roles. So here's the fast summary of us. I'm presenting Solita, and I was involved in this project as an information architect in early stages, and been about 10 years around with the data management and 8 years around with the MDM stuff. And football, don't play it unless you want to have some kind of surgery at some point. And here, Riikka.
Thank you. So, thank you. My name is Riikka Blomberg, and I'm coming from Fortum, the energy company. And I work there as a data management manager, and been part of the business technology organization there. My focus at the moment has been the recycling and waste solution. So in our language, it's called the RWS. And RWS is receiving waste from our customers, and we are turning the waste into the new materials. So the story next is about the RWS. For 3 years ago, RWS had a problem. Our customer service process was not working as it should. The outcome of our sales process was a commercial agreement, but the commercial agreement was unstructured. And when the salesperson then went to the customer service with the unstructured commercial agreement and asked the customer service to put or interpret the agreement to the ERP as a contract, the customer service had to use a lot of fantasy. And you can guess if I use words like unstructured, fantasy, and ERP in one sentence, it was a mess. So the customer then could call us, order, and we were delivering the service that we could do. So we could pick up the waste, take it to our treatment site, treated it. But our problems began when we started to invoice or report to customer what we had done. And that ended there, that we had a bunch of unhappy customers. And when we tried to correct then the problems or the errors that were there, we had also a bunch of unhappy employers, because correcting errors in unstructured ERP with the fantasy is not easy. The biggest problem was actually the one figure there, which is multiplied by 3. So RWS is actually a combination of 3 companies. There is a waste treatment company from Finland, one from Denmark, and a third one from Sweden. And one point of time when these companies were merged together, we actually never harmonized the processes nor the IT systems. So this same process was there 3 times, and it looked different in all those countries. Due to that, the management team of RWS made quite a lot of decisions. The first decision was, this might sound like old-fashioned, but the first decision was that we will have one ERP. The next ones, though, were not that old-fashioned. So it was decided that the ERP will be taken in use as standard as possible. And it was also decided that the ERP will function as a transaction machine and nothing else. So these decisions drove us there that we also needed a data management tool, which would then, so to say, validate the data and feed the ERP with the good quality data. We also decided that the project would run in an agile way, also the ERP implementation. And for the data management part, we still decided that we will run a proof of concept, POC, and that will be the decision point for us, which tool to choose. And for the POC, we wanted to choose a data domain that was really challenging. And for us, the most challenging data domain is a contract that is combining all those other master data entities with the business rules to one entity. And we ran the POC, and the outcome of the POC was that we chose software called Semarchy XDM, and Solita then to implement the software to us. And Kimmo, please tell about the story here.
Okay, so then we started the journey together. And the last part, but not least here, is also the agility. And that is also one of the key points how we want to run these kind of MDM projects. If you were here just 2 hours ago, I think, in the panel session, I think you heard me saying that quite a few times. So this is things that I'm going to cover in this session. So first we talked something about the big picture, what were the actual big problems, domains, and so forth. Ownership, well, you cannot underline that too much. Ownership is one of the key aspects here. Data modeling for us, what is the main keys there, how we strive for agility, and of course, how we strive for business support as well. And last but not least, user interface. It is one of the key concepts. If we do something, if users don't use it, it's worthless. It's just waste of money. So, the big picture. From data management perspective, luckily we were in a good position that quite a few really good decisions had been made already by Fortum. So, mostly centralized approach to MDM was kind of a possibility for us to do. But then again, multi-domain, a lot of different kind of domains and aspects for them, multifunction, quite a few different people running the system and processes and so forth, multi-country, multi-team, and on top of it, infrastructure from Azure. So, domains. Here are the main ones that we did. Reference data. I'd say this is the best bet to start from, as well, it is used pretty much in every other domain. You need to have country lists and that kind of stuff pretty much everywhere. And business partner, actually this is something with RWS specific. Their view of a business partner is actually, it's the same, even though it's a customer or supplier, it's still a business partner because they are receiving waste and selling services, so it can be both. And this is needed in ERP to make both POs and SOs possible.
Yeah, actually, because the waste can be valuable or it is treatable. So therefore, the customer can at the same time be also vendor.
And then, of course, own organization or RWS locations where things are happening, the place, equipment, trucks, bins, sensors, and that kind of stuff. And then the actual material or item, I would say. And then services that we sell to customers and how we treat the materials and so forth. And all of these combined by the contract domain or the agreement or whatever it is called. So quite a few different domains and quite a few different kind of implementation tasks per domain. So data modeling and implementation, data quality assessments and so forth, I'm not going to read all of those. But as you can see, it's kind of a table which have domains and then tasks, and they will have, of course, different tasks inside of them. So the main idea for us, why we started to run this in agile way, was that we need to concentrate at one point at a time. And by dividing these jobs in the kind of a manner that we can first we just concentrate on this one, and then we move on and move on and move on. And we don't need to implement everything at once. We have this thing called, in Finnish, nauruversio, laughing version for everything. First we do that, and then we move on and improve the stuff. But before going there, of course, there's a lot of things that are happening inside the organization. A lot of yarning and saying that no, we don't want to do this way or that way. We want to do our way or our imaginary way, as Riikka told. So it needs a lot of strong ownership to push these kind of projects like through for the companies. But for our case, luckily Riikka was there. She has done a lot of working inside the Fortum that we don't even know of, but we've seen quite a few quite harsh meetings and so forth. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, then a couple of words about development teams and systems. This is a simplified version of where we were, but in the sense that this tells the main story. That of course there are business processes that are implemented in ERP, and we started with one country, that is Sweden. So they started to look what they need, and then we started to understand what kind of master data objects or entities or domains we need, and what are the minimum viable product for each domain. That is how we started to just define and understand the need for business at that time. And of course, you need to have integrations in between. And for us, it was the case that actually the integration team, which was provided from customer side, was only one person. And we have quite a few different integrations to be needed between these systems. So he was heavily overloaded all the time. So we thought a little bit out of the box and how we could also keep the agility as high as possible. So we introduced the idea that maybe we will do this kind of a wrapper layer or interfaces that are not coming directly from the data model itself, but we are providing a wrapper that is on our hands, and we can then manipulate the data already into the mode that the ERP is actually needing it. So the role of the integration was just taking the data from us, keeping the same format, maybe doing a technical transformation, and then feeding it to the ERP. So in that sense, that was kind of a thing that made this possible. If we would have an integration team whose role would be to discuss with us to understand the data model, understand what kind of transformations there are needed before going to ERP, that would take time. We wouldn't be here talking about this if that would be the case. So from our point of view, now it's as we have this wrapper layer around us, if business has some need, we can implement it. We don't need to, we are not connected to the integration. We can implement it. And if the data is needed in the ERP system, then we need to change the integration as well. But if it's needed in, let's say, reporting or some other use cases, we don't need to change anything except the MDM side. Also, speaking of teams and their roles, from agility's perspective, it is really crucial that you don't have many connections between the teams. It should be as simple as possible. That in the really good world, there would be only one team who can build up end-to-end processes, but this was not the case. So make as little connections between teams as possible was also one key point here to make. So that was the case for the first country, but then, well, we are expanding in the three different altogether 3 different countries at the moment. So we made again decision that the role of MDM or data management platform is to provide global view of the data and maybe add some attributes per country. So in that sense, we still have the same interface in place for integration, and their job is just to map where this data is belonging, which ERP system or instance of ERP system this data is belonging to. And in the same time do possibly some other mappings and orchestrations. And as this is done in this way, as of now, it's quite easy to add more countries, if that would be the case in some near future, at least from data management perspective. We have all the needed stuff there. Okay. Then about data modeling. Main aspect here is also business-led. Everything needs to come from business, and we have had our workshop with Riikka and a couple of other business people whom we talked quite a lot and did early stages like conceptual models and all that kind of stuff, and then moved little by little to the details and what were really needed. The tool itself, for us, Semarchy, it provides that we need to do only logical modeling. So in that sense, it's still quite easy to understand, even though when talking with business, if we use the same glossary, business glossary as they are using. And also, the business buy-in is really one key point here. The reference data, at least for me, is kind of where every MDM project should start, in that sense that it is really fast to give something out for the business to show what kind of capabilities the system have, for example, country and what languages are spoken in that country and which currencies are used and so forth. So this kind of easy and give some visualization of how the UI will look and so forth. And about data modeling, here are some examples of how to use it. So this is actually taken directly from the Semarchy tool. Equipment is there in the middle, and it has quite a few relations towards units of measurement table and a couple of different hierarchies that are recursive ones. So they are quite easy to do and so forth. So for units of measures, we had the entity itself looks pretty much like this. So it has the data, what are the main objects, and what are their main types. And this main type is actually quite good to have, as within the tool itself, we can say, for example, when we are choosing a value for weight attribute, we can say that only values that have weight or mass, actually here in a type, are shown in the drop-down list. So this makes the user interface building a lot easier and straightforward. And then moving towards multi-ERPs, we actually made it so that we will have in the middle, there's RWS own organization entity, and we have many-to-many relations to those objects that are actually stored globally in the system. So the definitions are global, but we can, if needed, we could add more attributes in the many-to-many relation table. So in that sense, from data management perspective, one more country to this whole mess is only one more row to this middle entity, and you can start to fill in the data for different countries as well. Do you know what this is? Yeah. Well, this is, I'd say, even though there is only one user at the time at the picture, but I think this is really good definition of really good user interface. you know where you are going and how to use it. So this is also what we are driving with the UI perspective. We need to do it as simple as possible, as easy to use as possible. Now some examples of automating UI. Just give them the possibilities that they are really needing for. For example, that list of values that are UMS, unit of measurements that I spoke of, but also it could be case like we use helper entities that you don't need to input all the data, but we can default the values from the existing data that we have already in place. For example, financial stuff. If we are having a new business partner, let's say that is located in Sweden, but we are actually serving him from Finland, then the financials go with some kind of EU regulations, and so forth. So we can default pretty much everything. And of course, there is a possibility to override if needed. But that is the, let's say, couple of percent the case. So the main idea is to diminish the amount of needed data input, to make it as easy as possible for the end user. And in that case, I guess we were able to introduce quite a good interface for the business people, and they are, at least to my knowledge, quite happy with this one. Okay, here you go.
Good, so where we are now. So today we have a live system which is used in Sweden. So the ERP is live, the data management tool is live, and we are using it there. Our customer service process has also developed. So still the outcome of the sales process is a commercial agreement, but at the moment it's much more structured than it was earlier. We have services, for example, there, which we did not have earlier. And what is even better is that for the contract, meaning then the realization of the commercial agreement in the ERP, we do have templates for different use cases. So we have rules how to put the contracts there. So no more fantasy. And customer can order from us more or using more channels than just the phone. The service that we are delivering to the customer is still the same, waste treatment, turning the waste into new materials. But at the moment, we have then less errors in our invoicing process and in our reporting process, which is then ending to happier customer and also happier employees. And as we speak, we have this asset live in Sweden. We'll roll out this to Finland and to Denmark later 2020. So then we will have one process there, not three as in the beginning. For the data management platform, we still need development. We need more modern data warehouse or reporting solution that we will have to work with. But still, the biggest issue that is remaining to be handled are the people. Regardless how modern platform we are having, we are still working with the people. And we will really have to emphasize the change management so that we get the people working in a way that we are planned.
Yeah. So, a couple of key takeaways. If end-to-end teams are not possible to make, then diminish the amount of correction of the boundaries and clarified roles for each system and each team. What are they responsible of? And MDM can be done iteratively, but the model itself needs to be business-driven all the time, and you need to have business support. If you do this all alone in a IT corner, how to say, it will be a mess and doomed project. And one key thing is automate as much as possible. even the UI, if possible. And iterative approach is the key, at least from our perspective. You don't need to do everything at once. Keep the business people involved in the process of making the system alive, and give them examples how to use it, and make them feel that they have been listened and so forth. So, thank you.